Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
For over 20 years, Warner Loughlin has been a teacher and coach to Oscar, Emmy, Golden Globe, Tony, and Grammy winners and nominees. Her acting technique shatters the myth that an actor's past emotional traumas and dramas must be the fuel or foundation for their work. In fact, her unique technique has been used to help create some of the most remarkable performances of our time from actors such as Amy Adams, Ryan Reynolds, Kyra-Sedgwick, and countless other award winners. And we're excited to have Warner join us here on Big Blend Radio today to discuss her career and revolutionary technique that's now out in print. This is an incredible book. You know, I've been sitting and reading it, and as a singer, it resonates with me. As a writer, it does. So it's really exciting, and go get it. It's called The Warner Loughlin Technique, an acting revolution. Of course, you can get it on Amazon, all those great places. But I also encourage you to go to Warner's website. It's warnerloughlin.com, and that's Loughlin, not Laughlin in Nevada. So warnerloughlin.com. Welcome, Warner. How are you?
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited about this. You know, I've been reading this. You know, Nancy, she does the art side of things, and it's very interesting. We always have these talks about creativity and the arts, and where do you draw that line of bringing your past in? In reading your book and getting to understand this technique, I really love it because I've done it as a singer where I remember getting up on stage and going through a breakup and going, oh, well, I'm going to dedicate this song and just, like, belt it out. And then, like, now I actually started to lose what I was supposed to do with the song because of that. And it took a while for me to understand as a singer to create the story and the character that's in the story. And I think that's kind of similar to what you're talking about with this technique, right? You've got to step away from all that.
Exactly, and you can desensitize yourself too over time. As an actor, if you're using your past, and the same with a singer too. If you're using your past to get to that emotion, it feels like it would be simpler to do it that way, but it's almost, over time it's not repeatable. And when you're an actor, you need to be able to repeat an emotion take after take after take, and a singer as well, really.
Mm-hmm. And so it's really, is this about developing a character, really, that is separate from you? And isn't that part of being an actor, is that you're portraying somebody other than yourself?
Exactly. And you're always going to create it through your eyes and your imagination. So that part of you, it's not like it's completely distant from who you are entirely, only because it's coming from your individual, unique, and beautiful and wonderful imagination. So we keep a degree of ourselves,
Yeah, it's still you. Like everybody has it, like a singer has a signature sound. I'm not an actor, so I'm using my singing thing here. But everybody has their signature, who they are. You know, we know who Tom Hanks is, and he's got roles that we go, that's a Tom Hanks role. You know, not necessarily typecast, but it's who you are and your sensibilities. What led you to this technique and even teaching?
Well, teaching was completely, utterly by accident. If you asked me 20-something years ago, if you said, "Oh, you're going to be an acting teacher," I would have laughed. This was a technique that was birthed really from my own need. I was an actress for years, and I'd always been taught, method acting, which most of our schools and universities out there and acting studios all over the world really use a form of substitution, meaning I'm going to substitute my own past and my own tragedy and trauma, and I'm going to put them right into this scene, into this emotion. It makes sense on the surface, but the reality of it is that when you're in front of a camera and you have to repeat that take after take after take, you over time desensitize yourself to it, and you can't get there, which is completely frightening when you hear the word action. And besides that, it's completely psychologically harmful to keep dredging up, past tragedies and hurts and traumas that we've experienced. I mean, science even even tells us that, because it lives with you. It stays with you. It bleeds into your life, and art isn't supposed to, I don't think, be psychologically harmful.
I agree with you on that. I mean, I know just even on doing radio shows and interviewing numerous people about numerous topics, there's things that trigger things in the past. And, it's like, okay, we're going to get through this, and I want to cover this because it can help people over something that I may have gone through. Or and after the interview's done, I'm back in that emotional place, and I'm like, dude, that sucks. I don't want to go through that
right?
again. I don't want to relive this, So it's like looking at Facebook sometimes. You're like, dude, I thought I got rid of you. Leave me alone, stalker.
No, you were gone, and right there you are in my face, right? Yeah.
And so then you're in that, but then that to me is like, where are you? If you're creating from an emotional place, not a strong place. Actually, I don't think.
And it stays with you too. It haunts you for not just maybe today or tomorrow, but maybe next week, maybe next month. And we're meant to experience, tragedy. We all do, right? And we're meant to heal from that and move on. And sometimes when we try to use that in our art, just like you were saying right now, it creates a creative stop. In other words, we'll go, oh, no, don't feel that. Don't feel that. I'm not going to feel that. I'm not going to revisit that. I don't want to go there anymore, which is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happens when you have to be happy? That's the other thing. So this emotional side, I mean, do you remember if you're really, really happy about something, there's always going to be the kicker of the happy goes to bad at some point. That's so nice. You talked about it in your book about it being in a scene, and then, you went from, this really sad memory, and then you couldn't pull out of it to be in the happy zone. So it kind of just keeps flowing right through.
It really does. As much as I tried to disguise my pain in the scene that I was shooting next, it still bled through there. And like I was saying in my book, the director came over and embarrassingly said, "Do you realize you've got this little black rain cloud over your head?" I'm like, "No." Yeah.
So what's it like creating a new technique like this? Because I mean, when you think about it, acting has been going on for eras. I mean, way back when. It's it's an ancient thing. Even royalty had shows, But who was teaching, the actors way back when, and to now? How has the education part of it gone through the years? But what is it like to say, well, I've got a new way, and everybody else has been going, well, we've been doing it this way for years.
And they do too. I mean, there's I think in just human nature, change is difficult, right? If you think about all the acting techniques that we've had, most of them have been based on Stanislavski, who was a genius, really. But he, we're talking 1800s when we only had theater. So, we didn't even have electricity, right? Or did we? No, I don't know.
We probably had solar, but they also didn't want to tell anybody about that.
Right, it was a well-kept secret, right?
Yeah.
So Stanislavski developed this technique that would work in theater. And if you think about it, you've got the beginning, middle, and end of a play, and then you go home, and you come back the next night, and you do it again. Stanislavski actually, in his later years, decided that substitution was not a viable way to do things. Stella Adler went over to Paris, I believe it was, on his deathbed and said, teach me. I'm really truncating this now. And so he did, and she came back to the States. There was the group theater with Lee Strasberg, there was Meisner and all of those guys, and she goes, guys, we got this wrong. He's not using substitution now. He's embarking on a imagination-based technique way of doing it, right? And they went, no. And the group theater split up, which is why we have Lee Strasberg, who is method, right? Why we have Sandy Meisner, why we have all of those teachers, those acting teachers in American theater, and that's all. We're such a young country, if you think about it, but that's all we had been taught. But I love Stella Adler, but I think that her technique doesn't quite go psychologically deeply enough.
This is interesting. I mean, because it gets into the whole psychology thing, and I think that's what actors do. They have to pull on, the psychology of characters. There's this reading of people. Have you seen, when Jim Carrey, when he did the Andy Kaufman movie, how he became Andy Kaufman and that process? I thought that was one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen. I don't know if you saw the documentary where he talks about how basically even the people on the set didn't want to be around him because one minute he'd come in drunk, but he was like Andy Kaufman nonstop. What is that? It was pretty intense. He wasn't going back in his own life. He thought he was having this that. I don't know, Andy Kaufman was beaming down into his body or something, It was just kind of this connection where he totally became Andy Kaufman on set and off set.
And a lot of actors, right? And a lot of actors do that. First of all, it can alienate you from your fellow actors and your crew and everyone else around you, for one, but then it bleeds into your home life, for two, and it's actually completely unnecessary to do that. It's like if you watch Amy Adams on set, she can go to that place instantly, and at cut, she can walk off set and have a happy life. And she can repeat it take after take after take after take. She can go there. And it's important to be able to do that and to have your own stable, 2 feet on the ground, happy life when you're not a character. It's just an unnecessary way of torturing yourself.
Because we were watching, Nancy and I were watching this, and we were like, this is like, it is painful. It's like, okay, this is now taking over your life, and there's this balance that we have to have in life. Otherwise we don't, enjoy the rest of the world of, the fruits of the world that are out there. Whether it's family or travel and then I feel like when you bring on a character and you're like stuck in there, now you're not seeing anything new. You've lost your observation skills at a certain point, right?
Exactly. You're exactly right. And have you ever watched a performance and thought, geez, that makes me uncomfortable. I can't figure out why. But it's just making me a tad uncomfortable? They're probably using substitution. It's or if you've seen a crying scene where someone is just overwrought and emotional, and it's a believable cry, but you don't feel anything as an audience member watching it. You're not engrossed in it. That's probably a substitution, too, because you can't be in two places at one time. You can't be in the character's life and in your life at the same time. There's a break, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we actually can't multitask anyway. Science has proven that. Just get over it. I mean, you can, but it doesn't mean you're being effective, and so... And then how are you believable as a character? I mean, to me, in reading your book, too, it's like, this is so much fun. I want to be somebody else for a day or a month and just, develop this personality. I think it is because, to me, observation is always just such an exciting thing, and to learn. And it's just, wow, let's see how this feels from this person's perspective. And I feel like if we do more of that, we're actually going to understand humanity better. We need to all be actors for a while, just so we can understand people better.
Exactly. So many people many times people will come and go, oh my gosh, now I understand my boyfriend. Because they literally, broke down his life in using the technique, and they're like, oh, I get it now. I get where I can tweak him, and I'm not meaning to. Or sometimes people go, wow, I use the technique, and I really understand my own behavior a little more. So that's a unintended but good consequence, I think.
Now, what about the writers using this? Because to me, like I was saying, for me, as a singer, I was like, that's something, because I saw that my performances were not consistent, and actually I wouldn't remember words if I was in my own zone. But if you know what I mean, if it was about me, if I made the songs about me, I lost that connectivity, and my energy wasn't consistent because I do have I'm jumping up and down right now. I have that energy, but it's not consistent if it's not crafted or developed. I can't even explain it, but reading your book, I'm going, yeah, this is where I messed up, and this is where, as I started to go, okay, just take it away from yourself and go into, and then also like when I was singing in the very beginning, I would emulate other singers to learn the craft. But then you had to get to this point of not being them and being you, and yet telling the story from that person or place that song is about. So you did almost have to, you had to like have the structure, but you could still jam and be different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Structure is good. A lot of people don't have an avenue in, and I think the technique helps you with an avenue in, a basis to start from, to start creating from. It's like if we were painting a canvas, what's the first thing you do? Instead of just thinking, I want to put a beautiful picture on canvas. It's the same with a writer as well. Developing that character from the time they're tiny, 3, 4, 5 years old, and building a life. That character, or even if you're singing a song, being able to embrace that person's point of view and the emotion behind that as well is really, really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, so if I said to you, okay, now you get to be, let's see, a villainous woman in the 1860s, right? What would you do as an actor? Would you go and look up what women were like back then, and look up any of the villains, and if she was, because that's the thing too. It's one thing to be a character that is part of history and people know, or even modern times, right? But if it's a complete new character, in a way, that to me would be easier. But how do you start developing that character from that position of actually understanding how to be that character, whether it's some people know or a completely new character as an actor?
Well, let's take that example of in the 1800s, right?
Yeah.
We would want to explore, what does the world look like? What do people do? What are the social mores? Like, how are women, for instance, seen? How are they treated? What are their expected ways of behaving? That sort of thing. And then we'd get down to the person herself and explore her emotional makeup. What makes her tick? What makes her behave the way she behaves? And we would explore her family, the way she was raised. The birth order is really important when you're looking at a character. Socioeconomic levels, levels of education, siblings, friends, education, all of that all comes into play when you're developing a character, because each of those things impacts us differently. We're all little snowflakes. Well, an interesting thing is that people have always been people. My son once said to me, he was having trouble with a girlfriend, and he goes, "Oh, Mom, you don't know, because it's different now." I'm like, Actually, it isn't. It is, sure, but it isn't, too. We behave the way we behave. We're still human beings now as we were in the 1800s. So psychologically, yeah, we have different things to deal with, but psychologically, we're, human beings.
Exactly. We all have that. We all put our pants on the same way, right? I don't believe that, but some of us don't wear pants. but at the end of the day, we still have a heartbeat, right? There's that. We just may have a different. I might have flowers on my pants. There you go. That's what I want to say. Exactly. I want flower power on there. But so when isn't it like a really good place if the actors, if they're using this technique of yours and understanding this character development and having those boundaries, and this is me, this is my character, so when you're, if you're in The Shining, you don't need to attack people with a knife when you get home. You know what I mean? You don't have to go, "Here's Johnny," when you get home, but for the actors to all be on the same page, and then the directors and everybody putting a film together or a TV show or even a theater, isn't it in a way important, or it would flow better if everybody had that kind of, I'm just saying, sell your technique by group. If everybody was using it, it'd be a stronger performance.
I wish they would. Yeah, it would be great.
Yeah.
I have had films in which two of my actors were in the same movie, which is really interesting because you can see a slightly elevated performance from them because they just work more efficiently. It's like Disney Animation Studios uses my technique. The animators do, and the story editors do.
Oh, wow.
So that they can be, because in animation there are thousands of people. I mean, those guys are fascinating. They're just the most creative, lovely people. Oh my gosh, and very shy usually. but they use the technique so that they can all be on the same page. They can speak the same language, as it were. They know exactly where this character. For instance, I worked with them on Frozen. So we developed, a whole psychological profile of Anna and Elsa, and of course all the other characters too. But it helps the animators to be able to come from the same place.
So everything flows. That's what I'm thinking. Even on a performance, if it could all gel together and flow that way, and then the characters are really strong, because at the end of the day, there's stories that are strong and characters that are strong, which is the best, right? And has a good dynamic in it. But there's also sometimes stories that are just looking at a glimpse of someone's life or whatever, and it's not like this huge story, but it's going to be something that kind of just makes you think. It's kind of like chewing gum that you just keep chewing on it. It's like, there's some, like a scene from someone's daily life, but it doesn't work unless the characters are really strong. So everybody has to be strong to pull that kind of thing off.
And if there is a weak link, it shows quite readily too, right? But we want to follow. Yeah. We're fascinated with people and where their lives go and how they think and how they behave and what makes them tick and that sort of thing. So we will follow a character and that character journey more quickly than we'll even follow the story sometimes.
So I know we're talking a lot about actors and theaters and there's writers who are doing, the scripts and everything, but what about, novelists? Are novelists using this? Because to me, that's the key thing, because, we interview so many writers, and that's who you resonate. It's the character, man. And if you don't, feel like you're part of that character's story, even if it's a villain, right? We love to love the villains. That's such an important part of a novel.
Yeah, novelists definitely do use it. They find that it helps them create that nuance that takes their character, that gives their character just a little bit of a uniqueness, and it's I think the writing flows more readily when you know that character so incredibly well. When you are just in their skin, it seems to flow rather than trying to fit trying to make your character go along your storyline. In other words, letting your character tell you where the story goes sometimes, which is really fun. Yeah.
Well, you're making me all creative. Like now, I want to go off and write something. I'm like, it is fun. Creativity is fun, and that's the thing. And I think I want to go back to the emotional side of this because in the music world, the theater world, the acting world, there's all the dramas that come from what are people ordering for their green room to like, I don't want to be with so-and-so on set. And I mean, there's the drama, and of course all the, the tabloids love it, or they'll create something for everybody too. There's their creation. They know how to create characters. but so when you come from more of this balanced approach where, you're developing your character, but you can switch on and off, doesn't that kind of alleviate the drama in the actual process between everybody?
It completely does.
Create
the tabloids. Oh my goodness, they will create turmoil when there is none there. It's just fascinating to watch. But when you're on set, it's kind of like a family, especially if you're on location. It's a very small little world, but it's so important not to get so wrapped up in your character that you cannot let it go. Because if you're a man, your wife did not marry Al Capone, for instance. Your wife did. Your kids probably don't want to see that coming home. It's not good. And I see a lot of people.
Yeah. And what about from the director perspective too? How that relationship, let's put it that way, that communication, how that can work. Trying to push an actor, and maybe an actor's really got the character, but the director's seeing it in a different light. What about that relationship?
It's an interesting one. You have all kinds of different directors. Some directors are very result-oriented, and they'll say things like, "Oh, I think she should be angrier here." Well, it's difficult to play angry because you're playing at something rather than being angry, and the point is to be angry. But the way, for instance, that I might be angry might not be the same way the character gets angry. So as an actress, you would ask yourself, why is my character angry right now? Oh, because it goes back to, and I can promise you it will lie somewhere in that homework you've created, somewhere in that character development. That's where it will lie. And so it's quite easy to be directed, in other words. Some directors think, directors who don't really know how to work with actors, and there are a lot of them out there, bless their hearts. But some will go, they'll come up to you and they'll go, think of a time when you were really, really angry at, say, your mother, for instance. And you're sitting there going, no, I don't want to go into my past to think of when I might have been angry at my mother, for instance, because I'm this character right now. So you don't have to oppose a director. You just take what he says and you kind of translate it, in other words. And most actors have to do that anyway. It's the reason I have a job on set a lot of times is just to be that translator, because directors speak and actors speak actor speak, and they don't often gel. No matter what technique you use,
And you have to you have a strong core. I mean, here in the magazine world, we've done it in 2 different countries with huge staff, small staff, no staff. And with technology, it's a different world. But you would watch, and I think this is in any company. There's the creatives sitting on and creating and writing and doing the art for a magazine, and then here comes the outdoor salespeople walking into the office, and all of a sudden everybody's like, get out of my bubble. I remember in South Africa when Nancy had her magazine over there, and and I would do both, and that's really, you have to learn how to fluctuate between the business sales thing to now, and development and all that, and now, want to get into the creative process. And it's one of those, to me, this is that technique side of it, where how do you go from that to that? How do you, switch your creative brain on and then switch it off? And it would be a drama in the office. I mean, we had this guy, Derek, and he would talk to his computer, and it was the coolest thing, unless you were in a mood. And he would be like, bing, bong, ding, whatever, blah, blah, we have all these characters. And everybody would have their thing, and the creative people kind of just all had their thing, and nobody cared. All of a sudden somebody would yell at stand up and swear at the computer, and none of us cared. Then as the salespeople came in and did anything loud, the creative people basically, doors are slamming. It didn't work. There was this balance. But there is, in business, whether you're an actor, a writer, a musician, anybody in the arts, you have to be able to change your brain between business and creativity, and deal with people that are on the opposite side that you're on at that moment.
Right, and that comes back to the whole idea of actors being the character on set all day long, through lunch, through everything. You're exactly right, and we have to switch our brains, and it's quite easy to do if you just know how to do it.
You got your right side and your left side, and you just go do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around. So what is about the core that strength? When you hear about, someone going west to L.A. to Hollywood, you know about that. I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to do this. And everyone goes, okay, here comes the starving artist. And the parents are like, oh, my God, my little girl's going to, she's going to end up with some crazy other people. And, she's not going to make a living. And then she'll end up doing this. And then, and then it's not easy. I mean, it is one of those crazy, crazy industries. The entertainment world is crazy. And it can be hurtful. So any tips for those getting started in anywhere in the world that, they really want to do it, but it can kind of wear on you?
Stick to the truth about yourself. Know that you don't have to conform. You don't have to, for instance, change your nose or change your chin, or you don't have to be that beautiful goddess. Or for a guy, you don't have to change who you are, because you are unique, and there is something that you have to offer. And if you stick with that premise, first of all, and rather than think about what is it they want, they want, beautiful, flashy girls, or something. No, just they want you. So I think, first of all, having a really good, solid technique behind you, for real, so that you're not walking in auditions and winging it. I call it the wing and the prayer method. I used to do it. I know, right? Because when the substitution didn't work for me every time, and a lot of actors go through that. They're like, yeah, it works sometimes, but not all the time. You need a good, solid craft under your belt, and if you put the time in, persistence is huge as well, because for every day you're in L.A., for instance, or you're in New York or whatever city you're in, every day that goes by that you don't quit, somebody does. So persistence is really a thing, too. Another reason not to use substitution, because when you're walking in auditions, and if you're using your own life, you've just bared your soul in front of all of these people, and they've basically rejected you. So the rejection is deep. It hurts. It feels like, wow, I just cut myself open and showed you who I am, and you didn't like it. The reality in the business is that's not entirely true. But when you're using, imagination-based, it's as if I've created this thing, this character, and this might not be the take on the character that you're looking for. The reality is we don't get cast for a lot of reasons. Things like they needed a blonde and you're a brunette, or they wanted someone that was 5'2" and you're 5'8", and just 100 different reasons why you don't get cast, which is why it's difficult for younger actors to look at it as anything other than rejection, but it really isn't. The more, if you think about 100 rocks on the ground, and each one you pick up has a no underneath it, rather than thinking, geez, all I get are no's, realize that you're getting closer to picking up the rock that says yes underneath it. It's all perspective and how you do it. If you walk into an audition, never walk in an audition to get something. Always walk in to give something. This is my version of this character.
I like that. And I like what you're saying about, I cut open my life. Here's my story. It's almost like you went to confession and then the priest turned around and said, sorry, that wasn't good enough. That wasn't a good story.
I love that analogy. I'm so stealing that. I'll give you credit.
Okay, good. Because I know that feeling. I know that feeling of being there. No, it's like you will, But and that's the thing. It's like I think, and then you're putting yourself out there on this with your wobbly legs, because now it's not really the character, it's you. You're tearing yourself up, and it's still not a match. You're you know what I mean? It's like just create the character. It's far more fun. To me, that's the thing. I find this so exciting, and it really, to me, I think this can help writers with writer's block too, because this writer's block thing is just because people don't just start typing or start writing however they want to do it. And I think it's these kinds of techniques that, even as an actor, there's times where suddenly nothing will come out of your mouth, right? It's like, okay,
exactly.
I've got this whole thing. And then all of a sudden everyone's there and they go, action, and you're like, oh, where? That's it, I'm done, or you pass out. So once you have these kinds of strengths, when you build it, and that's the other thing, right? It just doesn't happen overnight. Once in a blue moon, people get that, but then they have to learn something later. So everybody has their time of throughout their careers and whatever they're doing. That it just takes time and practice and building, right? You can't just think you're going to get in and that's it. I'm going to be famous, right?
And
that's
exactly.
the thing, right?
Exactly right. And there are ups and downs as well. You can have a beautiful career happening, and then, you might not work for a little bit. It just, Amy Adams, for example, she did Catch Me If You Can. And we thought, oh, wow, okay, here we go, this is it, because it was a huge movie with, Tom Hanks, speaking of him, who's a wonderful human being, and Leonardo DiCaprio and that whole crew. And after Catch Me If You Can, she didn't work for a long time, and then she got a television series and was let go from that series. And something like that is just devastating when you're an actor. She calls me up. She goes, "I'm moving back to Colorado," and I said, "I will drag you back, kicking and screaming." No, she's like, "No, that's it. I'm done." I'm like, "No, you cannot." Right? And still, it was quite a bit of time before she got this audition for a movie, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know. It's a little movie." I said, "Well, let me read it." I read it. I thought, dang, this character is a fantastic character. Always go for the role, never the money, right? So the money will come. The money will follow. So I thought, no, Amy, you should definitely go in and read for this. And she's like, oh, okay. So we worked on it. She went in to read. Then she's like, oh, I got a call back. I'm like, what are you saying? Oh, I got a call back. She goes, I don't know. And she goes in, she books the role, and the following year, it was a tiny little movie at that time. That was her first nomination for an Academy Award.
Wow, isn't that amazing? It's
June
it's
buzz,
always it's every time you want to just, okay, that's it, I've done too much. Then you take that extra step, something happens, and it's always right at the epitome of frustration and feeling like, it's never going to work for me. I've done all this, right? And then you get to that point. So it's interesting when you hear the story and thinking about you. I know that you're a coach with actors, but it seems to me especially from reading your book, you're very personal and warm. It's like a very open place. And I think when you're working with actors, there's technique, but there's also there's coaching of them of their career pretty much with this, right?
There is that involved too. Yeah, I think acting teachers, I know there's a thing I say, which is ego is the great killer of creativity, and I think it is. And I think there are a lot of acting teachers out there who are ego crazy, or they feel like they didn't make it as an actor or an actress. But I truly believe in giving actors wings, not weights. Because it's, as an actor or a singer or a writer, you're so completely vulnerable, and you need props rather than to be told don't all the time. Another thing I notice with people, whether it be actors or writers or singers, there's a thing I call plateauing, where you feel stagnant and stale and stuck. I've noticed that those that persist through that little period of time always take a quantum leap. Now, I don't like to always say always or never say never, but I have never seen an actor or an artist like that. If they persisted, I've never seen one who didn't take a quantum leap. I've seen them quit at that point, but I've never seen them not fly. Yeah. So you got to work.
That's that frustration level. I always look at it when people get upset. I'm like, no, you're about to have a breakthrough. when things go wrong, even in life, like all kinds of weird things will start to happen. You're like, I'm tired of it all. That's it. I want to go have a goat farm. That's what Nancy and I always say. It's like, okay, she's planting daffodils, I'm raising goats, we'll have cheese and wine, and, what could go wrong? Everything, because that's life. But it's right when you feel that, then all of a sudden, it can come from technology. It can come from, and technology is big. That's something you talk about too. Look at where technology has come now, and it's made people have to change how they do things in all industries. And you get frustrated. Oh, I've done it this way, and then you get stagnant, and then it's this push to go to that next level, that quantum leap you're talking about. It happens. It happens, and I think we get a lot of those stages. I think there's like 7 or 8 big ones in our life. I don't know, but it feels that way.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, yeah.
It's those life-changing experiences that you don't understand at that right when it's happening, and then all of a sudden you wake up and go, oh, I'm going to do it this way. You have to change. That's the thing. You have to always develop and change to move forward.
Change can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable sometimes, but my mother used to say to me, all good things are coming and I accept them. I don't know where she got that. But
I like it. I'm going to keep your chin up. Yeah, exactly. I love that. That. Lastly, you also work with comedians, right? Because you got another book on that. And so because this is a little, I'm sorry, but every comedian that gets out there has like an extra pair of cojones that a lot of us don't have. I mean, to get up there and watch like their joke bomb, that has got to suck like royally, and then just keep going. And I think there's some of the most bravest people on the planet are comedians.
Truly, they are. Right? Truly they are. But yes, the comedy book is not out yet. Look at the comedy technique is slightly different than the dramatic technique, but it'll happen soon.
Oh, good. You got to keep us posted on that. Well, I really appreciate you joining us here on Big Blend Radio. Everybody, again, the book is The Warner Loughlin Technique, An Acting Revolution, and it's and I'm pronouncing it right? Please tell me.
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying, everybody said L-O-U, not an L-A-U like Laughlin, Nevada, and Vegas is far better. I'm just kidding. Laughlin's interesting. Let's put it that way. So it's the Warner Loughlin Technique, An Acting Revolution. It truly is. You can get on Amazon, but also go right to Warner's website. It's warnerloughlin.com. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Big Blend Radio airs Monday through Thursday from 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The best thing to do to listen live or on demand is go to bigblendradio.com. And I want to thank the National Parks Arts Foundation for being the sponsor of this segment. They really create these amazing, unique programs, artist-in-residence programs where you could be an actor, you could be a musician, a writer, a filmmaker, a poet, a painter, and you stay in a national park unit for a full month to create. How about that? So check it out at nationalparksartsfoundation.org. Thanks so much, Warner. You take care.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it so much.
I did too. Bye-bye.
Bye.